She was hired to clean the building, but one silent gesture got her escorted to the executive floor. If she had known that one simple gesture would turn her world upside down, she might have stayed home that night. But she didn't. Janelle Brooks showed up to work like she always did, on time, invisible, and armed with her cart of supplies. The same cart she pushed every night through the towering glass headquarters of Hawthorne and Bell Financial in downtown Sacramento, California. The building was all marble, glass, and silence by 7 p.m., the kind of place that smelled like money even after the lights were out. The kind of place where people like Janelle didn't exist outside of a uniform and a badge that beeped her in and out of service elevators. She didn't mind it much. She liked the quiet. Needed it, actually. At 36, Janelle had built her life around silence. Born deaf in a family that never quite learned to meet her halfway, she had mastered the art of staying out of the way, being efficient, being invisible. Her world was clean floors, signed texts with her cousin Carla, and the soft comfort of her old beige apartment a few miles off Watt Avenue. That night had been long. 2 busted soap dispensers, a clogged breakroom sink, and someone spilled what looked like Thai curry all over the 12th floor carpet. Janelle was almost done, just a few glass doors left to clean on the executive wing. The hallway was dim, empty, the kind of stillness that made you feel like you weren't supposed to be there. She spritzed the glass, wiped in circles. Her rhythm was good, methodical. She was lost in it when a reflection caught her eye, a sharp suit, polished shoes, and a leather briefcase. She turned quickly. There he was, Brandon Teller, the new CEO. She'd only seen his face in passing, company posters, an internal email someone left open on a printer, tall, well-kept, somewhere in his 40s. His energy was clipped and fast, like he was always 10 steps ahead of everyone. Not the kind of man who noticed the cleaning staff, but this time he did. He slowed down, maybe startled to see someone still working. She froze too, cloth still in hand. The seconds stretched. He looked at her badge. His eyes darted to her cart. Then he gave a small, polite smile. Janelle blinked. She wasn't used to that. Not from people in suits. Before she could stop herself, she smiled back and raised her hand in a slow, practiced movement. Good evening. In ASL, she didn't know why she did it. Habit, maybe, respect. She knew he wouldn't understand. Most didn't. But something strange happened. His brow furrowed. He hesitated. Then slowly, awkwardly, he raised his hand and signed back. Thank you. It was clumsy, barely readable. But it was real. She didn't know what to say after that. Neither did he. They both smiled, awkward, real, and kept walking in opposite directions. No words, no names, just that. She didn't think anything of it. People had moments all the time. Tiny, strange things that made no sense and faded away. So she went back to wiping glass, her mind already shifting to which vending machine had the good chips. But she had no idea that that 2-second exchange, silent, strange, and out of place, was about to rearrange everything. Because the next morning, something was waiting for her at the front desk. And it wasn't a broom. The next morning was like any other at first. Janelle pulled into the back lot just after 6:50 p.m. Her old Corolla coughed like it always did when she turned the key, and the sun was just starting to drop behind the rows of office buildings lining Capitol Mall. She had a granola bar in her pocket, hair pulled into a low bun, and the same navy blue uniform she'd worn the night before. But as she walked toward the employee entrance, something was off. Security was standing by the door, not just one guy like usual, 2. One of them was new, tall with a military posture, the kind that looked like he could spot trouble before it happened. The other, Brian, gave her a tight-lipped nod, her chest tightened. She knew that look. She'd seen it before, in stores where people watched her too long, in meetings when her voice wasn't heard, in rooms where her silence meant people made up their own stories. Brian said something, his mouth moved, but she didn't catch it, too fast. She raised a finger and pulled out her phone. Can you type that, please? She signed calmly. He fumbled for his phone and typed, You're needed upstairs, executive floor. We're escorting you. Janelle stared at the screen. What? She looked up. Her fingers moved fast. Why? Did I do something wrong? Brian shook his head. No trouble, he said aloud, more slowly this time. But his tone said something else, like he didn't even know what was happening. She didn't argue, just nodded and followed them in silence as they led her past the janitor locker room, past the service elevator, and straight to the main elevator, the one she was never supposed to use. Every floor that blinked by felt like a step closer to trouble. Was it about her interaction with the CEO? Did she break some kind of rule? Her head filled with every bad scenario she could think of: complaint, confusion, a misunderstanding. The kind that usually didn't end well for people like her. The doors opened with a soft ding. 21st floor, executive offices. She stepped out. The carpet was thicker here, softer. Everything was glass and silver and quiet. Too quiet. The two guards stayed by the elevator. Brian gave her a quick thumbs up, but it felt forced. She walked forward alone. A woman in a charcoal suit stood at the front desk. She looked up and smiled, gently. "Ms. Brooks?" she said. Janelle read her lips slowly, then nodded. The woman tapped something on her desk and gestured toward the double glass doors behind her. "They're ready for you." Janelle stepped through. Inside was a long conference table, sleek and cold. At the end sat two people, Brandon Teller, the CEO, and a woman she didn't recognize, maybe HR. Janelle stood by the door, unsure if she should sit. Brandon stood and walked toward her. No smile this time, just a thoughtful expression. He signed slowly. "You clean here?" She nodded. He fumbled a bit, then added, "Last night, you signed to me. Why?" Janelle hesitated, then answered with her hands. "It's how I say hello. Respect." He watched her hands carefully, like he was trying to memorize them. He turned to the woman next to him and spoke. "She's the one I told you about." Janelle caught a few words. "ASL, sharp, noticed her, kind." He turned back to her. "I took 2 years of sign," he said aloud, slowly, trying his best. "College. I forgot most of it. But you reminded me." Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. Then he added something that stunned her. "I want to offer you something." She blinked, confused. Hands up. "Offer me what?" He pointed to the chair. "Please, sit." Janelle sat slowly, heart thumping in her chest. He pulled out a folder. Inside were papers, charts, emails. She couldn't make out everything. But one thing stood out. At the top of the packet, Administrative Support Program, Internal Hire Consideration. He explained, bit by bit. He wanted to pilot a program, bring in voices from every level of the company, people with different perspectives, people like her. He hadn't planned any of it until last night. That moment, that one moment, had stuck with him. Janelle didn't know what to say, couldn't speak even if she wanted to, so she just signed. "Why me?" Brandon shrugged, but not in a dismissive way. "Because you made me stop. Think. I haven't done that in a long time." But this was only the beginning, because what came next would push Janelle into a world she never imagined herself stepping into, and not everyone was going to welcome her. She didn't sleep that night. Janelle laid in bed, staring at the ceiling in her tiny studio apartment, replaying everything, every look, every word, every sign. Her cat, Mango, curled up beside her, completely unbothered by the storm building in her mind. She'd spent most of her life staying in the background. Now, suddenly, the spotlight was swinging her way, and she had no idea what to do under it. Was this for real? People didn't just notice her. Not people like Brandon Teller, not executives. She'd seen enough over the years. Janitors passed over for raises, cleaners written up for petty things. She'd learned not to get too hopeful. There was always fine print. So the next night, she showed up again. Same time, same uniform. But this time, there was no cart waiting. Instead, a woman from HR, someone new, met her in the lobby with a clipboard and a smile that looked overly rehearsed. "Ms. Brooks, welcome," she said. Her lips moved slowly and deliberately, clearly coached. "You'll be starting upstairs today." Janelle raised a hand. "Why so soon?" The woman tilted her head. "Mr. Teller wants to move quickly. He believes in acting while the idea is fresh." That wasn't comforting. That sounded impulsive. Still, Janelle followed her to the elevator, upstairs again, 21st floor. Only this time, they didn't stop at the conference room. They turned down the hall and into a narrow office, bright, sleek, minimal. On the desk, a tablet, a notepad, a small nameplate that read Brooks. It didn't feel real. "Temporary desk for now," the woman said. "You'll shadow the executive assistant. If that goes well, we'll talk next steps." The door closed behind her. Janelle stood there, hands by her sides, staring at her own name. For a moment, she forgot to breathe. Then came the knock. A tall woman stepped in, tan blazer, dark curls, wide eyes full of polite confusion. "Hi," she said slowly. "I'm Kendra. You're shadowing me today?" Janelle nodded. Kendra looked at her, then at the tablet, then back. "Do you talk?" Janelle smiled and signed. "I sign." Kendra hesitated. "Okay, I don't know sign." Janelle pulled out her phone and typed, "No problem. I can read lips or write. Whatever's easiest for you." Kendra read the screen and nodded slowly. "All right, let's make it work." They started slow. Kendra explained things out loud, pointing, showing her how to handle appointment requests, how to organize inboxes, how to prep meeting rooms. Janelle followed, quick and focused. But by mid-shift, the cracks started to show. An older man in a gray suit passed them and whispered too loudly, "That the new assistant? Why don't we just get a mute robot while we're at it?" Kendra said nothing. In the lunchroom, two younger interns glanced her way and laughed under their breath. One of them even mimicked hand signs, sloppily. Janelle saw it, every bit of it. She didn't flinch, she didn't confront. She'd seen worse. But it made something stir in her chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just a quiet warning. Kendra, to her credit, tried. She included her in conversations. She typed when things got too fast. But the energy had shifted, and Janelle noticed. People watched her more now, not with curiosity, but with doubt. Like they were waiting for her to mess up. She didn't. She stayed on task, sharper than ever, logged things faster than Kendra expected, caught a double booking that would have caused a scheduling nightmare. By the end of the night, Kendra looked at her with something close to respect. "You're quick," she said. Janelle smiled and signed, "I've always been quick. People just don't always notice." But someone else was noticing, and not in a good way. The next time Janelle walked in, she'd find out the hard way that not everyone liked seeing her on that floor. The next night started strange and only got worse. Janelle had barely settled at her desk on the 21st floor when a woman she didn't recognize walked in without knocking. Mid-40s, stiff posture, notepad pressed to her chest like a shield. "You're in my seat," she said. Janelle blinked, confused. She pointed to the temporary nameplate on the desk. The woman smirked. "Temporary is right." Janelle stood, calm, signed, "Are you the assistant I'm shadowing?" The woman narrowed her eyes. "No, I was the assistant. For 3 years. Until yesterday." She dropped her notepad on the desk and walked out without another word. Janelle sat back down, her stomach twisting. No one had said anything about someone being pushed out. She thought she was shadowing Kendra. Was this woman her replacement? Later that night, Kendra found her near the copy room. "Hey," she whispered. "Sorry, that was Melissa. She got reassigned. Nothing to do with you. I swear." Janelle wasn't convinced. She could feel it in the air now. Resentment. By the end of the week, the whispers turned into more than that. Someone sent a group email to the executive floor staff. A joke about installing subtitles on all meetings now that the company was hiring deaf assistants. No one signed their name. Brandon heard about it, called Janelle in. This time it was just the two of them in his office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist desk, framed photo of him, and what looked like his son fishing in Tahoe. He looked tired, not angry, just disappointed. "I'm sorry," he said clearly. "This place moves fast, sometimes too fast, and people don't always handle change well." Janelle stared at him. Then slowly, carefully, she signed, "Did I take someone's job?" Brandon shook his head. "No, you're here because you're good. You've shown more potential in a week than most of the people I've seen in months." He stood, walked around the desk. "I didn't plan this," he admitted. "But that night, you signing to me, it made me realize how blind I've been to the people right under my nose. You had something I couldn't ignore." He paused. "You still do?" Janelle tapped her fingers lightly against her chest, her version of a nervous habit. Then she signed, "This job, it's more than a promotion. It's being seen." He nodded. "I want you to keep going," he said. "And if anyone gives you trouble, come to me directly." She appreciated the gesture, but she knew better. People didn't change just because the boss said so. They changed when they had no choice. Over the next week, she doubled down. She learned everything Kendra taught and more. She stayed late to study software the others didn't touch. She handled 2 last-minute meeting changes when Kendra called out sick. One of the senior VPs complimented her. Brief, but mattered. Still, the cold stares didn't fade. At one point, a man from accounting leaned over her desk and said, "It's just for optics, right? You don't actually expect this to last." She stared at him, then calmly picked up her notepad and wrote, "You'd be surprised what quiet people are capable of when nobody's watching." He didn't bother her again. She was finding her rhythm. But then something happened she hadn't prepared for. A mistake, a big one. Someone sent out a confidential file to the wrong vendor. A file with salary reports from the upper floor. Sensitive numbers. The email had her name on it. Janelle sat frozen at her desk when the IT guy came in, holding a printed copy. "I traced it," he said. "It came from this terminal." Her fingers moved quickly. "I didn't send that." But her voice, once again, wasn't the one people were listening to, and now the room she fought so hard to get into was about to push her right back out. There was a silence thicker than usual when Janelle stepped into the executive office the next evening. Eyes followed her. Some avoided hers completely. The woman at the front desk didn't smile this time. Kendra wasn't in yet, and Melissa, the former assistant, was suddenly seated at the edge of the hallway, tapping away on a laptop like she had never left. Janelle tried to stay steady, but she felt it. She was being watched now, not like a curiosity, but like a problem. The IT guy's accusation was still echoing in her head. The salary report had gone out from her login, her credentials, but she hadn't sent anything. She didn't even have access to that level of information. It didn't matter. Once your name is on something like that, people stop caring about details. That's when Brandon called her in again. This time his posture was tighter, voice lower. "There's pressure coming from upstairs," he said. "Legal. HR. They want to suspend you while they investigate." She didn't need to read lips to catch that word. Suspend. It sat like stone in her stomach. She signed slowly. "You said I could come to you." He nodded. "That's why I haven't signed off on it yet." She looked him in the eye, firm. "I didn't send that file. I wouldn't. Check my access." He studied her. Then, to her surprise, he didn't dismiss her. He picked up the phone and called IT, right there in front of her. "Pull access logs," he said. "Every click, every login. I want timestamps, session IDs, everything." She sat silently, gripping the armrests of the chair. The next hour felt like a year. He kept her in the office while they waited. Then finally, the IT manager came up in person. He handed Brandon a printout. Brandon scanned the page. His eyebrows lifted slightly, then he looked at Janelle. "You were logged out at 6:03 p.m. The email went out at 6:12. She signed. "Exactly. I was in the break room." It nodded. "Someone must have used her station. It's a shared network. Easy to spoof if you're sloppy." Brandon's expression darkened. "Find out who." He turned to Janelle. "I'm sorry." She didn't answer right away, just looked out the glass window. This wasn't just a scare. This was someone trying to push her out. She signed, "Someone wanted me blamed." Brandon nodded slowly. "Looks that way." Later that night, Kendra returned. She was pale, tense. She pulled Janelle aside. "I think it was Melissa," she whispered. "She had your login on a post-it. Remember that day she stormed out? She passed your desk. I didn't think about it then, but she had something in her hand." Janelle sighed. Of course. Old games, new packagings. She'd worked twice as hard, kept her head down, learned the ropes, and still, someone tried to make her fall. But now the script was flipped. Brandon sent out a formal email that night to the entire floor, addressing the breach, clearing her name, and calling for tighter access protocols. He didn't name Melissa, but she didn't return after that. The following week, things changed. People were quieter, not out of disrespect, but out of reconsideration. A few said hello. One even stopped by her desk and asked her how to say good morning in sign. Janelle taught him. Later that day, Brandon passed her in the hallway. He stopped, pointed to his chest, and signed, "I see you." Not perfect, but close. She smiled and signed back. "Thank you." That night, she stayed late again. Back to the quiet floors, the empty desks, the vacuum hum on the lower levels. But this time, she wasn't cleaning. She was taking inventory, organizing old files, prepping documents for a presentation. Different work, new ground, and maybe, just maybe, a crack in the ceiling she didn't even know she'd been under. But success doesn't come clean. Someone else still wasn't done with her, and their next move would make Janelle question if she even wanted to stay at all. The office had finally gone quiet again, but this time, it wasn't peaceful. There was tension in the air, like something was about to snap. Janelle was back at her desk, trying to focus, trying to stay ahead of every possible mistake. She'd spent the weekend brushing up on every software tool the team used, even ones she hadn't been assigned. She wanted to be ready, prepared, untouchable. But even that didn't stop what came next. It started with a text from Carla, her cousin. "Hey, you good? I saw your name on Twitter." Janelle's hands tightened around her phone. She clicked the link Carla sent. There it was, a photo of her, blurry but recognizable, standing in front of a whiteboard in the executive conference room. Underneath, a caption, "When DEI hires go too far, she can't even talk but sits in on meetings. This your future, America?" Tens of thousands of likes, hundreds of nasty comments. She couldn't breathe. Someone in the building had taken that photo. During a staff meeting she was invited to observe. She hadn't even noticed the camera. She showed it to Brandon that same day. He read the post twice, jaw tight. "We have security footage," he said. "We'll figure out who did it." But it wasn't just about who did it. It was about what it meant. Suddenly, Janelle wasn't just a woman trying to do her job. She was a symbol people were attacking to make a point. The comments weren't just cruel, they were ignorant. Some said she was being used. Others called her a diversity stunt. A few were more direct, calling her slurs she hadn't seen since high school. That night, she didn't go home right away. She sat alone in the stairwell behind the 20th floor, her badge still clipped to her shirt, her hands shaking. Kendra found her there. She didn't say anything at first, just sat beside her. After a few minutes, she pulled out her phone and typed, "You don't have to keep proving yourself to these people." Janelle took the phone, added her own line, "If I don't, who will?" Kendra typed again, "You already have. You shouldn't have to bleed for people to believe in you." They sat there, the silence between them loud in its own way. The next morning, Brandon held a staff meeting on the executive floor, company-wide. He didn't name her, but everyone knew what it was about. He stood at the front of the room, eyes heavy. "We talk a lot about culture here," he said, "but culture isn't posters on the wall or mission statements. It's how we treat the people we think we can get away with treating badly." He paused. "I've seen more character from someone who can't speak than I have from some people who never stop talking." A few people looked down, some nodded. That afternoon, the post was taken down. Security confirmed it was a junior marketing associate who took the photo. They let her go immediately, but damage doesn't vanish that easily. Janelle still felt the weight of it, the doubt, the question that crept in late at night. Is this even worth it? Then came the email. Subject, executive admin offer, permanent placement. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. They were giving her the position, officially. Salary, benefits, office keycard, the whole thing. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she closed her laptop. Didn't reply, not yet. Because when the world tries that hard to push you out, sometimes the hardest decision isn't whether you're good enough. It's whether they deserve to keep you. Janelle showed up 2 days later. No warning, no email reply, no call. Just walked through the doors of Hawthorne and Bell like nothing had happened. Same uniform, same steps, same calm expression. But something had changed. She went straight to the executive floor. Brandon was in a meeting. Kendra looked up from her desk, startled. "You okay?" she asked. Janelle nodded and signed, "I'm ready." Kendra smiled softly, like she didn't want to say too much, like she knew words could ruin something that didn't need them. Janelle walked into the office and waited. She stood by the window, looking out over Sacramento, the city she'd worked in for years, without ever really being seen. Brandon came in 10 minutes later, coffee in hand, expression surprised, but not disappointed. "I didn't think you were coming," he said. She signed, "I wasn't sure either." He sat down across from her, quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward. "You've had to deal with more in 3 weeks than some people do in their careers," he said. "I won't pretend it's fair. I won't ask you to be the face of anything. But I will tell you this. If you want to stay, we'll stand behind you. Not just me. The board, HR, legal, all of it. The offer stands. Janelle took a breath, then reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She laid it on the desk. It was her signed offer letter. And beneath her signature, she'd written one sentence, in clear, sharp handwriting. I'm not your symbol. I'm your colleague. Brandon smiled at that. Good, he said. That's exactly what we need. That day, Janelle started as the full-time executive assistant to the CEO. She had her own desk, her own nameplate, no more temporary tags. She attended high-level meetings, handled sensitive schedules, coordinated projects between departments. She learned faster than anyone expected. She made mistakes, but fewer than most, and she owned every single one. And slowly, something in the building began to shift. It wasn't loud, but it was real. People began learning how to sign basic greetings. It added accessibility features to all internal systems. HR brought in an ASL interpreter twice a month, and every new hire went through inclusivity training that Janelle helped shape herself. One afternoon, months later, a new intern stopped by her desk, eyes wide, nervous. You're the one who, he began, then stopped, unsure. Janelle smiled, signed, I'm just me. But behind her, on the wall of the office, Brandon had once said he'd redesign, hung a framed photo of her first day at that desk. No caption, no plaque, just the image. Proof that she had been there, that she had stood still while the world caught up. It wasn't about overcoming anything. It was about being allowed to be seen without having to perform, or explain, or prove. Janelle still didn't talk. She didn't need to. People had learned to listen, not with their ears, but with their attention. There's a lesson in this. Sometimes the strongest voices are the ones you almost miss, the ones who don't demand attention, but deserve every bit of it. And the people who truly change things, they don't always kick down doors. Sometimes they clean them. So if you're in a place where no one sees you, keep going. Don't get smaller to fit inside someone else's comfort. Take up space. And when they finally look up, let them see exactly who you are. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's ever felt overlooked. And if you're in a position of power, ask yourself, who am I not seeing? You might be surprised by the brilliance right in front of you.